My mom at 60 years old asked for a divorce. Dad roared at her. Get out then. Who needs you? Jason, my older brother, tossed out a parting shot. You're unbelievable. I pushed through the wreckage scattered across the floor and went straight to her. I took her hand firmly. Mom, I said. Come with me. When I pushed open the front door, the first thing I saw was a house full of people. Dad was there. Jason too. His wife, Crystal, and Crystal's whole clan, their parents, her younger brother, were sprawled all over the couches and armchairs, acting like they owned the place. And Mom? She was alone in the kitchen, crouched by the sink, silently scrubbing a mountain of dishes. Her small, tired figure seemed almost swallowed by the mess. As soon as he spotted me, Dad crushed his cigarette into the ashtray and barked. Go talk some sense into your mother. Our in-laws are still living here. What's she trying to pull with all this drama? I glanced around the room, heavy with grease and the cloying stench of cheap perfume, and frowned. Why are they even staying here? I asked. Crystal's mother rushed to smooth things over, flashing an awkward smile. Sweetheart, Crystal's grandma is sick. She's at Allegheny General downtown. We're just crashing here for a few days to be closer. She hadn't even finished when Jason cut in, face like stone. Enough. We don't owe you an explanation. This house isn't even yours. Then he turned his glare on me, full of irritation. God knows what's gotten into your mom. At her age, talking about divorce? It's humiliating. Hi, Mom. I let out a soft laugh, sharp as a blade. She's not yours too? Were you born out of a rock or something? You. Jason didn't expect me to snap back. For a moment he was completely speechless. Crystal jumped in, forcing a brittle laugh. Jenna, Jason's just upset. We asked you here to help talk to your mom. If she keeps causing a scene, it's not going to look good for anyone. I nodded, my voice calm. Sure. I'll talk to her. I walked straight into the kitchen, took the heavy stack of dishes from Mom's hands, and carried it back into the living room. Without a word, I hurled the whole load onto the floor. Porcelain shattered in a deafening crash, the sound ripping through the stunned silence like a whip crack. I learned two things very early in life. First, I was the least wanted person in this family. Second, my mom was the one who worked the hardest. Back at Grandpa and Grandma's house, there was never a seat for me at the dining table. Mom would cook an entire feast, carefully laying out the dishes. Grandpa would wave her off with a fake, dismissive smile. Helen, there's no room. You and Jenna eat in the kitchen. Honestly, I didn't mind sitting at the little kitchen table. Because Mom would always sneak a few of the best, crispiest pieces of meat onto my plate when no one was looking. While the rest of the family clinked glasses and roared with laughter outside, Mom and I shared simple, stolen moments of happiness in that cramped kitchen. When I started school, I consistently ranked among the top students. But by my junior year, Dad suddenly put his foot down. He refused to let me keep studying. He said he could pull some strings and get me into a local factory. Even fresh workers made nearly $3,000 a month. If I handed over $1,000 every month to the family, combined with their small savings, it would be enough to buy Jason a house out by the suburbs, so he could marry Crystal. Mom fought him with everything she had. Dad flew into a rage, beating her black and blue. Still she wouldn't give in. With a face so swollen it barely looked human, Mom went to my school. She begged my teachers to give her a few more days, promising she would find a way to cover my tuition. She took jobs hauling bricks at construction sites. 5 cents a brick day and night, until her fingers were bloodied and raw. And still she kept going until she scraped together every last cent. The night she finally paid my tuition, Dad beat her again. Worse than before. I studied like my life depended on it, desperate to drag her out of that house. When I got accepted into a top university, the first thing I did was beg Mom to divorce him. But Jason was getting ready to marry Crystal. The family needed to throw a big, respectable wedding. Mom just sighed and said, I can't abandon him now. Not at such an important time. That's who my mom was. She loved everyone else without hesitation. But somehow she never quite learned how to love herself. After Crystal married into the family, she became even more ruthless, emboldened by the full backing of Dad and Jason. Every meal, she demanded her favorite dishes. If even one was missing, she would throw a tantrum, wailing about how she was being mistreated. If her parents so much as coughed, Mom was expected to brew fresh pots of expensive herbal soup and personally deliver it to Allegheny General Hospital, because otherwise she would be called heartless. Even Crystal's underwear had to be hand-washed by Mom. If Mom dared to use the washing machine, Crystal would accuse her of being disrespectful. Jason never once objected. In his mind, Mom could never do enough to earn the title of a good mother. Dad was even worse, puffing up with pride whenever the in-laws came over, as if showing off his perfect family was a personal achievement. These two, Dad and Jason, loved appearances more than they loved breathing. So when I smashed that stack of dishes across the living room floor, their faces drained of color, flickering between green and ghostly white. Jenna Hartman. Have you lost your damn mind? Jason shot to his feet, ready to charge at me, but his mother-in-law lunged forward and held him back. I curled my lips into a slow, deliberate smile. I'm not losing my mind. I'm helping Mom find hers. If she's divorcing you leeches, why should she keep slaving away for a bunch of parasites? Even a dog wags its tail when it's fed. You people aren't even as decent as a dog. The room fell into a dead, suffocating silence. Crystal's face turned bright red. She finally dropped all pretense, screeching at me with all the rage she could muster. Hearing the commotion, Mom came rushing in from the kitchen, panic written all over her face. As soon as Dad caught sight of her, he exploded like a powder keg. Helen, look at the monster you raised. Mom had always been gentle, never the kind to talk back. She opened her mouth, trembled for a few seconds, then forced out a fragile but steady reply. Richard, I told you. I'm divorcing you. Dad's face twisted with rage. His voice rose to a howl. Get out. Right now. You want to leave? Fine. Get the hell out, I don't give a damn. Everyone on the couches mumbled a few half-hearted attempts to calm things down, not an ounce of sincerity among them. I opened my mouth, ready to fire back, but Mom patted my hand gently, signaling me to hold back. Grinding my teeth, I followed her back into the bedroom. As we shut the door behind us, Jason's voice came sneering from the living room. Ungrateful trash, both of you. A few weeks earlier, I had been tied up with business trips in New York. The workload was crushing and I hadn't checked in with home for days. Now, piecing together Mom's sighs and broken murmurs as she packed her suitcase, I slowly uncovered the hell she had been living through. Crystal's grandmother had a sudden stroke and was admitted to the hospital. Using taking care of Grandma as an excuse, Crystal's parents and younger brother had moved straight into our house. But while they pretended it was about helping Grandma, the reality was crystal clear. It was Mom who cooked their meals. Mom who fed Grandma. Mom who cleaned her bedpans. Mom who bathed her frail body. And after all that, Mom still had to cook and clean for the entire freeloading circus camped out under our roof. Crystal had the nerve to lecture her. Mom and Dad are guests. How can we let them eat badly while they're here? And it didn't end there. Crystal's brother, Caleb, a 20-something-year-old man, had tripped and scraped his knee. Trying to curry favor with his in-laws, Jason announced with great self-importance. When I was little, Mom would massage my bruises every night and I'd be fine by morning. Mom, you should give Caleb a massage too. So under their endless demands, Mom was forced to spend half an hour every night massaging that lazy oaf. Mom always said, when you're caring for people, you treat them like family. It's the right thing to do. But what finally broke her heart was what happened when she got sick herself. That day she couldn't even get out of bed. Her body burned with fever, trembling so hard she could barely speak. She called Jason, begging him to take her to the ER. Jason, he chuckled and said, I promised to take Crystal and her parents shopping today. It's all set, can't back out now. Then, as casually as tossing away a piece of trash, he added, if you're feeling bad, just stay in bed. We'll be back later. Oh, and don't forget, you still need to visit Grandma at the hospital afterward. They packed the whole crew into the car, Dad included, and drove off, laughing and chatting as they went. They were gone the entire day. Meanwhile, Mom lay in bed, burning with fever, starving, dehydrated. Alone. No food. No water. No one even cared enough to check. In the end, she had to call 911 herself. The paramedics broke down the door to get to her, with the property manager hovering nervously nearby. They loaded her into an ambulance and rushed her to the hospital. As for the rest of our family, they didn't even find out until they came strolling back that evening. And heard about it from the neighbors. When they finally arrived at the hospital, there was no worry, no guilt on their faces, only rage. They circled around Mom, shouting and cursing. Dad barked at her. Helen, you're just faking it. Calling an ambulance for nothing, wasting money, embarrassing all of us. Jason sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Perfect timing, huh? The whole family's busy and now we gotta babysit you too. Can't you be a little more considerate for once? Crystal crossed her arms, smirking, and threw in her own knife. I knew it. She's just jealous we went out and had fun. Got herself sick out of spite. Some people are just pathetic. Hearing that, my hands trembled so hard my fingertips went numb. Mom was the most frugal person I knew. For years, if she ever caught a cold or sprained a wrist, she would grit her teeth and tough it out, refusing to set foot in a hospital unless she was absolutely dying. She must have been in unbearable pain to call 911 on her own. I looked at her frail little figure swaying like a dying leaf in the wind. I blinked hard, trying to force back the tears welling up in my eyes. But they spilled over anyway. Mom, ever so light-hearted, said that Crystal didn't want to catch her bad luck, so she stayed less than 5 minutes before dragging the whole family out of the hospital. It was a complete stranger, an old woman sharing the hospital room, who pitied Mom enough to sneak her an extra bowl of soup. And in that moment Mom realized, in the eyes of these so-called family members, she mattered even less than a stranger. That was when, after a lifetime of swallowing hurt and betrayal, Mom finally allowed herself the thought. It was time to leave. Mom didn't pack much. A lifetime of devotion to that house, and it all fit into a single battered canvas duffel bag. That day she stepped out of her room, carrying her entire life in one hand. Mrs. Evans, Crystal's mother, rushed over with her usual fake smile, trying to snatch the bag away. "Oh dear Helen, what are you doing?" she cooed. "This is all our fault. We should never have moved in and caused trouble between you two. It's a sin, really." She tugged at the bag dramatically, complaining about pulling her back in the process. Crystal's father, Mr. Evans, came barreling toward Mom, looking ready to shove her. I stepped in before he could touch her, shielding Mom behind me. And Dad and Jason, they just stood there in the doorway, hands stuffed in their pockets like they were watching some cheap soap opera. As if the woman being attacked wasn't their wife, their mother. Mom didn't look back once. I kept close to her side as we moved toward the front door. When Mom bent down to change her shoes, Dad finally opened his mouth, his voice rough and cold. "Helen, you step out that door today, don't you dare think about ever coming back to the Hartman family." I straightened up slowly, turned to him and said in an icy voice, "Good. Who the hell would want to?" All the anger I had buried for years boiled over. I pointed straight at Dad, my voice shaking but loud and clear. "You're nothing but a coward. I'll bark at home, but out there? You wouldn't dare open your mouth. You beat Mom because she's the only one you can beat." I turned and jabbed a finger at Jason. "And you? You're nothing but a spineless, bootlicking traitor. You'd sell out your own mother just to suck up to your wife's family. You're not a man, you're a disgrace." I swung toward Crystal, my voice cutting like a knife. "And you, demanding your favorite dishes at every meal like you're some damn princess. Or is it because you grew up starving, that now you treat my house like a charity kitchen?" I turned to Mrs. Evans without hesitation. "Your mother gets sick and my mom has to brew soup, stay up all night, wash her body? What, your whole family dead and buried, huh? I didn't even spare Caleb. A grown man trips over his own 2 feet and my mom has to massage you every night? What's wrong, Caleb? Knocked the sense out of your head? Turned you into a vegetable?" Finally, I glared at Mr. Evans, my voice a whip crack. "And you dare to shove the woman who bent over backwards for your family? You're all leeches. Flesh-eating parasites. Jenna Hartman. You looking to die tonight?" Jason roared, rolling up his sleeves and lunging at me. I pulled a small fruit knife from my pocket, my eyes cold enough to freeze the room. "Come on. Touch me and see who hits the floor first." Crystal screamed, throwing herself at Jason and clinging to his arm. I glanced around at the pack of them, then said, steady and deadly calm, "I'll have a lawyer draft the divorce papers. I'll deliver them myself. From this moment on, whether you live or die, you have nothing to do with me or Mom." Without waiting for another word, I grabbed Mom's old canvas bag in one hand, took her hand in the other, and walked straight out of that house that felt more like a prison than a home. "Mom," I said quietly, "let's go home. Last year I quietly bought a small 2-bedroom condo downtown. I didn't tell anyone. The day I brought Mom to our new home, she unpacked her things carefully, her hands trembling slightly, still filled with unease. She looked up at me, her voice tinged with a scolding tone. Jenna, why did you pull a knife out back there? What if you had hurt yourself? Promise me you'll never be that reckless again. I sat down beside her, wrapping my arms gently around her frail shoulders. Softly I said, because I made up my mind, Mom. I was going to get you out, just like you once pulled me out of that hellhole with a knife in your hand. It happened the year I got my college acceptance letter. Grandpa and Grandma had, out of nowhere, invited us back to the old family house in rural Pennsylvania, saying they wanted to celebrate. But the moment we stepped in, I smelled a trap. Turns out, behind our backs they had already sold off my freedom. They heard girls once they went to college never really came back home. So together with Dad and Jason they struck a secret deal. They accepted $15,000 from a local thug's family as a wedding gift. All they needed was a sham wedding banquet, a meal, some liquor, and I would be married off before I could even pack my bags. When I realized what was happening, I kicked the dining table over and tried to run. But I was outnumbered and quickly dragged back. The thug's mother shouted, "Grab her. Haul her off. Once it's done, nobody can say a word about it." They stuffed a dirty rag into my mouth, bound my hands and feet, and threw me over the thug's shoulder like a sack of grain. Just as despair swallowed me whole, Mom came crashing in. Hair disheveled, eyes blazing, wielding a rusty sickle she must have snatched from somewhere. I dare you to lay a single hand on my daughter." She swung that sickle wildly, no technique, just raw, desperate force with every strike. The room froze in shock. In that moment, the woman who had spent her life bent over from years of heavy labor stood taller than mountains, stronger than the sky itself. Grandpa and Grandma panicked, crying and threatening suicide, trying to blackmail her into backing down. But Mom didn't waver. She called the police. Dad and the thug were arrested on the spot and held for 2 weeks. Before I left, terrified they might come after me again, Mom shoved what little savings she had into my hands. "Jenna," she whispered, "Mom's useless. But take this money and go live a good life. Don't ever come back to this godforsaken place." Tears blurred my vision as I begged her to come with me. But she refused no matter how much I pleaded. I carried resentment for a long time. Resented her for being stubborn. For being trapped by tradition. For not running when she had the chance. But as I grew older I understood. It wasn't stupidity. It wasn't weakness. She had been born into a cage she never even knew existed. She had never seen the vast, brilliant world beyond her tiny patch of sky. Yet somehow, out of sheer love, she had torn through the iron bars of everything she had ever been taught. And fought with everything she had to save me. That was her rebellion. Her greatest act of courage. The day after Mom moved into my new place, the landline rang. It was Uncle Bob. The moment she picked up, the verbal assault came crashing through the receiver. "Helen, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Running off with that ungrateful daughter of yours while Richard and Jason almost starved to death at home? Your husband is the only one you can truly count on. Jenna. She'll get married and leave you soon enough. You'll come crawling back to the Hartman family eventually. Listen to me. Go home, apologize, and let's forget this nonsense before you embarrass yourself any further." Mom huddled in the corner of the couch, clutching the phone, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. She tried to explain, her voice so small it was barely a whisper. On the other end, Uncle Bob laughed coldly. "This is nothing, Helen. Jason's in-laws hardly ever visit. It's normal to treat them well. And about you getting sick. Come on, what are the odds you happened to collapse right when the family was busy? Sounds like someone's just being a little too dramatic." He finished with, "If your son can keep his wife happy, that's what really matters. That's how families stay together, isn't it?" I watched Mom's face fall, her last flicker of hope extinguishing. Maybe when the phone rang she had still clung to a sliver of hope. That someone, anyone in the family, might actually stand up for her. But she was wrong. Grandpa and Grandma had passed away long ago. And Uncle Bob only lived by one rule. Suffering doesn't count for much. Just suck it up. I snatched the phone out of Mom's hand. My voice was low and ice cold. "Uncle Bob, this is Jenna." The line went dead silent. I didn't wait for him to speak. I kept my voice steady, slicing through the quiet like a blade. "First, she's your sister. Your only living family. You should remember that. Second, I'm not planning to marry anytime soon. And when I do, I'll never marry into a family that disrespects my mother. Third, my father and brother are fully grown adults. If they're starving, it's not because they're helpless, it's because they're worthless. If they die from it, well, may God have mercy on them. There was a long, awkward pause. Finally, Uncle Bob stammered. Jenna, you must have misunderstood what I meant. I gave a soft, humorless laugh and hung up. No use wasting breath on people like him. What I didn't know at the time, though, was that my offhand comment about them starving would soon turn out to be half a prophecy. A few days later, while I was tied up in back-to-back meetings at the office, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was frantic. Jenna, you need to come back now. Your dad, something's happened. Turns out, Dad had suffered carbon monoxide poisoning and was rushed to the ER. That crumbling old house, built in the 70s, hadn't had its gas lines updated in decades. The kitchen still relied on an ancient propane tank from the last century. That morning, Crystal had ordered Jason to make breakfast. Jason fumbled around with the old stove, failed to get it lit, and, brilliant as he was, forgot to turn off the gas valve before waltzing out the door. He then happily escorted Crystal and her parents downtown to have breakfast at IHOP. By the time they came home full and satisfied, they opened the door to a wall of gas thick enough to choke on. And there was Dad passed out on the bed, completely unresponsive. They panicked and called 911. Hearing all this, I almost laughed out loud at the sheer irony. After a lifetime of shielding his precious son, of abandoning his sick wife to go eat and drink with freeloaders, finally it was his turn to be left behind. I told Mom not to rush to the hospital. He's not dying anytime soon, I said coldly. I'll swing by after work. But Mom had a heart that just couldn't turn cold. By the time I arrived at the hospital, this is what I walked into. In the hospital room, Mom was bent over, scrubbing vomit off the floor with an old, frayed rag. And Crystal? She was lounging in a chair nearby, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone and picking at her nails. Jason, nowhere to be found. I shoved the door open so hard it slammed against the wall with a deafening bang. Crystal lazily lifted her eyes from her phone, looked me up and down and smirked. Weren't you the one who said it didn't matter to you whether he lived or died? She sneered. Funny how you're back here now. Her voice sliced through the air like a rusty blade, grating and vile. She tossed a mocking glance toward Mom, her smirk deepening. Mom's hand, still clutching the rag, froze mid-scrub. Her knuckles turned white. I pulled out a stack of papers from my bag and held them up with a flick of my wrist. Mom's only here to finish the last bit of duty she owes as a wife, I said, my voice sharp. And me? I'm here to deliver the divorce papers to Dad. Crystal shot out of her chair, eyes wide with shock. On the hospital bed, Dad blinked awake, his pupils dilated, a low, panicked moan escaping his lips. Crystal lunged and tried to snatch the papers from my hand. I shrugged casually. Go ahead. Tear it up. I've got copies. Mom quietly gathered up the dirty rag, rinsed it out at the sink and straightened her back. Without another word, we walked out of the room together. Head held high. She was wearing the new clothes I had bought her, extra small size. Yet even then they hung loosely off her frail frame. At the end of the hallway, Mom whispered, Jason said your dad's not doing well. And look at those people. None of them can take care of him. If I didn't show up, he might not have made it. A ball of fire rose in my chest, burning so hot it made my vision swim. I almost laughed from how furious I was. You still feel sorry for him? I hissed, my voice shaking. I jabbed a finger back toward the room we had just left. When you were lying sick in bed, who checked on you? Who brought you so much as a cup of water? I lay awake at night thinking about it, and it tore me up inside. And they blamed you. They used you. Not once did they do a damn thing that resembled love. My sudden explosion startled Mom so badly she flinched. I knew she was struggling inside. Ever since she moved out of that house, she had been fighting an invisible war against everything she had been raised to believe. In her bones, she was still the woman molded by old traditions. The woman who thought if you just endured long enough, peace would eventually return. If it hadn't been for the brutal wake-up call at the hospital, she might have stayed trapped forever. But now, how long could that awakening really last? Good-hearted people like her, they always forgave too easily. Time would dull the wounds. She would start to remember only the tiny scraps of kindness, and forget the mountain of cruelty. And then she would soften. Turn back. fall right back into the same trap. But why? Why the hell should she? I reached out and gently rolled up Mom's sleeve. There on her forearm was a scar. Pale, sunken, brutally vivid under the dim hospital hallway lights. It was an old wound, but it screamed louder than any words could. Dad had done that to her, with a kitchen knife. I was just a kid then. Dad had lost himself in gambling, sinking night after night at the poker tables with the town's worst drunks. He hit a bad losing streak. Someone big-mouthed and cruel joked, "Men with daughters always lose. Girls are born owing debts." Dad drank himself into a blind rage. That night he stumbled home reeking of whiskey and fury and went berserk. He grabbed a knife, staggered toward me, slurring, "You're the cursed thing that's ruined my luck." I ran, scrambling across the yard, arms flailing, lungs tearing from screaming. But I couldn't outrun him. Mom came home just then. She didn't even stop to take off her shoes. Seeing Dad lunging after me, she hurled herself at him with bare hands, grabbing for the knife, fighting him with everything she had. In the struggle, the blade slashed across her arm. It wasn't until blood stained the floor that Grandpa and Grandma lazily wandered over to break up the fight. They didn't take Mom to the hospital. They called some local quack to come stitch her up in the living room. While he was at it, he dabbed some antiseptic on my palms, where two deep, jagged scars still cross each other to this day. I opened my hand, letting her see the old, angry marks. "Mom," I whispered, my voice shaking, "you might have forgotten, but I haven't. I haven't forgotten the night Dad tried to hurt me. I haven't forgotten how Grandpa and Grandma tried to sell me off. I haven't forgotten how the two of us scraped and clawed our way through hell in that house." Mom's eyes flooded with tears, welling so fast she couldn't blink them away. "Jenna," she choked out, "the day I sent you off to college I told you to run as far away as you could. To never look back. Why didn't you listen?" I broke. The words ripped from me like a dam bursting. "It's not because I didn't listen." Huge tears splattered onto the floor. "It's because you saved me, Mom. You pulled me out of the filth of the Hartman house. And my voice cracked into pieces. "I just wanted to save you too." "But why?" I screamed, raw and furious. "Why, when I laid the ladder right in front of you? Why do you still want to jump back into the damn mud?" Mom's eyes glittered with turmoil. Our stares clashed midair, sharp, silent, vicious. Finally, he broke. With trembling hands she reached for the divorce papers. And signed her name. But I knew. It wasn't just my screaming and crying that forced her hand. It was what I had shown her. The evidence. All these years. While I was away at college, while I was trying to build a life. Dad and Jason had been blackmailing me step by step, year after year. They had stolen my contact information from Mom. And then came the texts, the emails. Sick. Need money. Bills unpaid? Need money. Buying a house. Need money. At first I thought they were just bluffing. Until the day they sent me a photo. Mom's face, battered and broken, her eyes split open, her cheeks swollen purple. That's when I realized. They weren't just bluffing. They were monsters. I wasn't stupid. I consulted friends in law school. Even between family, blackmail and extortion were felonies. So each time they demanded money, I transferred it. And kept every scrap of evidence. Screenshots, bank receipts, photos, texts. All carefully filed and dated. I watched their crimes pile up. From minor misdemeanors. To charges heavy enough to lock them away for 5 to 15 years. If I wanted to, I could send them to prison tomorrow. But I didn't. Because I knew. If Mom still held even a shred of attachment to the Hartman family, even if I threw those men behind bars, she wouldn't be free. She wouldn't be happy. So I swallowed my pride. I let the blackmail continue. I let them bleed me dry. All for this moment. The moment Mom finally, truly, gave up. God must have finally opened his eyes. After the gas poisoning, Dad was left partially paralyzed. At first Jason and the others grudgingly paid some of the hospital bills and brought him home. But let's be honest, every second of it they resented him. At the beginning Jason made a half-hearted show of wiping Dad down, spoon-feeding him. But a paralyzed patient, unable to control his bowels or move on his own, quickly became more than an inconvenience. Crystal hated the smell, hated the mess, hated the embarrassment. It didn't take long for Jason's life to turn into a living hell. Soon enough he cracked. He started calling, begging Mom to come back. On the phone, Jason sobbed and blubbered. Mom, it was all my fault before. I didn't know any better. I shouldn't have always taken Crystal's side. If you come home, I'll get down on my knees and apologize, I swear. Hearing his crocodile tears made my stomach turn. But Mom hesitated. She looked at me, her eyes shifting, wavering. I leaned close, mouthing two words. Severance. Money. I didn't give her time to second-guess herself. That very day I pulled some strings and found her a job. Fast. She became a senior household assistant for a family in our neighborhood. Salary, $4,000 a month. Excellent benefits. Home every night to sleep in her own bed. Mom had never even dreamed she could earn that kind of money. She threw herself into the work, doting on the family like they were royalty. And little by little she changed. She walked taller. Her eyes sparkled again. But just to make sure her heart wouldn't soften, I tweaked the terms of her employment contract a little. I told her, there's a penalty clause. If you quit, you owe 10 months' salary, around $40,000. Mom's face drained of color. She nearly burst into tears from panic. Jenna, I can't afford that. I could never pay it back. I patted her hand gently, reassuring her. Don't worry. As long as you don't quit, you'll be fine. Then I deliberately added, unless, of course, you're thinking about going back to the Hartman house, to serve the bloodsuckers again? Mom stammered, head bowed, unable to look me in the eye. I sighed, feigning heartbreak. If you really want to go back, I won't stop you. Worst case, I'll just let them keep blackmailing me. Worst case, I'll cover your penalty fee myself. Mom's eyes filled with tears. She clutched my hand tightly, almost swearing an oath. Jenna, I'll never drag you down again. Stay. I'll work hard. We'll live our own life, just the two of us. With people like Mom, words weren't enough. You had to anchor the consequences deep in their hearts. Make them understand there was no turning back. Now, every time she thought about that $40,000 penalty, no matter how soft her heart might get, she would never ever think about going back. Meanwhile, Jason was losing his mind. He screamed into the phone, cursing and spitting insults. But I calmly ended the call. Then blocked every Hartman relative from Mom's contacts. When Jason realized he couldn't reach Mom anymore, he got desperate. He started staking out my office building. One lunch break, I stood at the 25th floor's glass wall looking down. There he was, pacing like a caged rat outside the front doors. I deliberately skipped the underground garage and walked straight out the main entrance. Let him catch me. Jason spotted me instantly and dragged me into a side alley, his voice a low, furious growl. Jenna Hartman. Where the hell are you hiding, Mom? I slung my backpack over my shoulder and answered lazily. I'm not hiding her. Mom's busy working. That's why she doesn't have time to take your calls. Working? Jason snorted with contempt. A housewife with no education, no experience. What kind of job could she possibly have? Don't feed me that crap. Then he switched gears, barked orders like he had every right to. Tell her to get her ass back here and take care of Dad. I can't do this for another damn day. I looked him up and down. The scruffy beard, the bloodshot eyes, the stained shirt. He looked like a washed-up drifter. I couldn't help but laugh. Mom's a senior household assistant now, I said casually. $4,000 a month. I watched Jason's face contort, every muscle tightening. I let the silence stretch. Of course, I added sweetly. If you and your precious family can cough up $3,000 a month, Mom might just come back and cater to your every need. Jason's face twisted into something grotesque. He exploded. Dream on, he bellowed. The hell she needs to get paid for. It's her goddamn duty to take care of us. What kind of shameless old woman expects money for doing what's expected of her? Shameless. I laughed, a soft, cold laugh dripping with scorn. Shameless? If there was anyone shameless in this world, it was them. Jason must have sensed the shift in the air because he quickly changed tactics, plastering a fake, pitiful smile on his face. Jenna, come on. This isn't all my fault. Mom was the one too dumb to know better. She did whatever Crystal told her to do. I stared straight into his eyes, my voice low and steady. Jason Hartman, she wasn't dumb. She just loved you. He loved you. She loved that miserable house. She loved you so much she swallowed every insult, every wound without a sound. And what did you do? You mistook her love for weakness. For stupidity. For something you could crush underfoot without a second thought. Jason blinked, momentarily stunned. Something flickered across his face. He raised his right hand dramatically as if making a solemn vow. I get it now. I swear if Mom comes back, I'll treat her right. Crystal misses her too. We're planning a big welcome home party. Wise. All wise. I smiled thinly. But I nodded. As I knew. I needed to go back to the Hartman house. We needed Mom's documents. Her IDs. Her papers. All the things Dad had locked away in the bedroom drawer. The moment the door swung open, a wave of stench hit me square in the face. A choking mix of mold, rot, and human waste. The house looked like a condemned dump. No one cleaned. No one cared. Rotting leftovers scattered across the floor, dirty socks piled high like mountains. Crystal and the rest of them had already bailed, disgusted by Dad's condition, leaving him behind to rot alone. I pinched my nose and forced myself toward Dad's bedroom. Inside, a bowl of cold porridge sat curdled and sour on the nightstand, forming a crust of filth. Dad lay in bed, nothing more than a moldy, ruined slab of meat. His eyes were vacant, his whole body reeking of decay. I stepped closer and asked, cold and sharp, Richard Hartman, did you ever think it would come to this? You spent your life puffed up with strength, beating Mom, beating me, breaking everything good around you. And now, left behind by your precious son, starving in your own filth. Not even a bowl of warm soup. You deserved every second of it. Dad heard my voice and started panting with rage. Why the hell are you here? He spat. Where's Helen? Tell that bitch to get her ass back here and take care of me. I enunciated every word slowly, deliberately. She's not coming back. I'm just here to collect her documents. To cut every last tie between you. Dad gritted his yellowed teeth and hacked up a foul glob of spit onto his filthy bedsheets. Dream on, he croaked. He started shrieking. Helen belongs to me. She's my woman. If I want her dead, she dies. She'll never leave me. I had expected it. I wasn't even surprised. I let out a short, cutting laugh. I stepped closer, towering over him. You can't even wipe your own ass anymore. Tell me, who exactly are you threatening? If you refuse to sign those papers, fine. Just know this. Mom and I will never set foot in this house again. I leaned in, my voice low and lethal. Richard Hartman, I may not be able to kill you with my own hands, but I can make sure you live a life that's worse than death. Dad's face twisted into a furious, grotesque mask. You filthy brat. You dare threaten me. I'll have Jason take care of you. His trembling hand snatched up the bowl of rancid porridge and hurled it at me. I sidestepped easily. The bowl shattered against the wall, spraying sour sludge everywhere. I turned slowly back to him, cold as ice. Jason. I sneered. You mean the genius who nearly gassed you to death because he couldn't work a stove? The great son whose wife can't even stand your stink, who abandoned you faster than a rat jumps a sinking ship? I moved closer to his bed and whispered into his ear. Let me tell you something, Richard. Your beloved son, he already came to me. Told me he's had it with wiping your ass. And if I were to slip him a few $1,000s. To dump your worthless carcass under a bridge. You know he'd do it without blinking. I locked eyes with him, watching fear bloom in his pupils. As he knew, Jason absolutely would. Greedy, lazy, cold as ice. The Hartman family never raised a man worth trusting. And he knew I would follow through without a second thought. I had just started rummaging through the closet, fishing out Mom's ID, when Jason barged into the room and snatched it from my hand. The old walls were thin. He had heard every word between me and Dad. Jason grinned, his voice dripping with fake sweetness. Now, Jenna. Isn't it a little shady sneaking around stealing Mom's stuff? I said nothing. Instead, I calmly tapped my phone screen, quietly starting the recording app. What do you want? I said flatly. More blackmail. Jason feigned outrage, waving his hands in mock innocence. Don't be so harsh. We're family. How could you call it blackmail? You know Crystal's family's still living off me. I'm drowning in bills. Don't you think it's only fair you pitch in a little? My eyes narrowed. My voice turned glacial. And if I say no? Jason's mask cracked immediately. His face twisted into something dark and vicious. Then don't blame me when your cozy little life falls apart, he hissed. This town's small. It wouldn't be hard for me to find you and Mom. When that happens, don't expect me to show any mercy. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Jason Hartman. The living embodiment of karma rotting from the inside out. I didn't bother arguing. I simply pulled out my phone, coldly transferred $3,000 to him, and held up the confirmation. Jason's face lit up like he'd won the lottery. He tossed Mom's ID back to me with a smirk. Now that's more like it, he crowed. As long as I'm living good, you two can tear the world apart for all I care. You've got money. Spend it to buy peace. Win-win, huh? Pocketing the cash, Jason strutted off, eager to go back to wagging his tail for Crystal. On Mom's side, the divorce went through surprisingly smoothly. Dad only agreed to cooperate because Jason had completely abandoned him. Me. I promised him sweetly, if you cooperate, I'll hire a caregiver to look after you. He believed me, just like he once swore in front of the police. He'd never hit Mom or me again. Twice. All of it. At the courthouse, Mom's palms were slick with sweat. She was finally about to do the thing she had replayed in her mind 1,000 times. This time she wasn't afraid. Her signature on the divorce papers was shaky and awkward, but every letter was firm and unwavering. As she wrote, I saw flashes of my own journey. Signing for my first student loan, hands trembling. Signing scholarship applications, cautious and hopeful. Signing my first job offer, dizzy with excitement. Signing the lease to my very first apartment, heart steady and sure. Step by step, I had clawed my way from the mud into a life that finally blossomed. And today, I was pulling Mom out of the same swamp. Dad said nothing throughout the entire process. Every so often he lifted his head, glancing at Mom in her clean, crisp clothes, then down at his own decaying, broken body. The male pride that once filled the house like a thick, poisonous fog was now shattered, crumbled into dust. When the paperwork was finished, Mom went to the restroom. Dad had the new caregiver will him closer to me. He lowered his voice, thick with false humility. Jenna, I wronged you too. I admit it. You still hiring a caregiver for me. Dad's really grateful. Only now, after everything, did he dare mutter an apology? And what good was it? Would one dried-up apology erase decades of blood, bruises, and terror? Worse. He wasn't sorry. He was just desperate. Jason had long since disappeared with the money he scammed. Dad had no one left but me. I smiled sweetly, warm as a summer breeze. No worries, Dad. It's the least I can do. The caregiver would only stay for a week. After that, Dad and Jason would be rotting behind bars together. Everything was already set. Mom's new life had quietly begun. Her employers owned a winter vacation house in California. Every year they moved there for the season. And they loved Mom so much they wanted to bring her along with double pay. The day after the divorce was finalized, Mom laced up the new sneakers I had picked for her, grabbed her lightweight suitcase, and boarded a flight to sunny California with her employer's family. That same day, I filed a lawsuit. I officially charged Richard and Jason Hartman with extortion. I remembered Mom's teary whisper on divorce day. After all these years with your dad, seeing him like that, it still hurts a little. She ever found out that it was me who sent Dad and Jason to prison, she'd probably be even sadder. But I never explained. I never blamed her. As I understood, blaming someone's weakness on a lack of strength is cruel. The chains of upbringing, culture, survival can't be shattered by willpower alone. The day of the trial, the courtroom was a circus. Crystal and her parents threw a screaming fit in the gallery, hurling insults and sobbing theatrically until the bailiffs dragged them out. And Dad and Jason, when the guards hauled them into court, they snapped like two mangy dogs. You'll die a miserable death. You ungrateful bitch. I closed my eyes as the judge's gavel slammed down. A deep, rising tide of peace washed over me. The final verdict. Jason Hartman, 5 years. Richard Hartman, 13 years. Finally, the nightmare of decades was over. Walking out of the courthouse, the sky blazed with orange twilight. My phone buzzed. It was a photo from Mom sent from California. She stood by the ocean at sunset, draped in a white shawl, arms spread wide to the salty breeze. The golden light bathed her, and for the first time, she looked as if she had sprouted wings. The woman who had once been bent and broken by years of cruelty was finally standing tall, stronger than ever. The wind roared wild and free around her. And so were we. Finally, free.